Animal Farm by George Orwell. Episode 2. Narrated by Wormhole Podcast. Old Major, the wise old pig who had inspired the animals with dreams of freedom, passed away peacefully one night in early March. They buried him at the foot of the orchard beneath the apple trees he had loved. But his ideas didn't die with him. They were just beginning to spread. In the months that followed, something remarkable happened on Manor Farm. The pigs, being the cleverest animals, took it upon themselves to organize the others. 2 young boars emerged as leaders: Napoleon, who was large and intimidating and rarely spoke, and Snowball, who was smaller but bursting with energy and ideas. There was also Squealer, a small round pig with a gift for talking. He could explain anything in a way that made it sound completely reasonable. The other animals joked that Squealer could convince you that black was white if he wanted to. Together, these 3 pigs took Old Major's teachings and turned them into a complete philosophy. They called it animalism. The idea that animals should be free, equal, and never again serve humans. Late at night, when Mr. Jones was asleep, they held secret meetings in the barn to spread their message. Now, convincing the other animals wasn't easy at first. Some felt loyal to Mr. Jones. After all, he fed them, didn't he? Others couldn't see why they should care about a rebellion that might happen long after they were gone. The silliest concerns came from Molly, the pretty white mare who loved looking beautiful. Her very first question to Snowball was whether there would still be sugar after the rebellion. And more importantly, would she still be allowed to wear ribbons in her mane? Snowball tried to explain that ribbons were symbols of slavery, decorations humans put on animals to show ownership. Surely freedom was worth more than pretty ribbons. Molly agreed, but you could tell her heart wasn't really in it. The pigs also had to deal with Moses, a tame raven who was Mr. Jones's favorite pet. Moses was a tricky character. He did no work but loved to tell fantastic stories. He spoke of a magical place called Sugar Candy Mountain, where animals went after they died, and every day was Sunday with endless treats. The pigs worked hard to convince the animals that Sugar Candy Mountain was just a fantasy. Moses was distracting them from the real work of preparing for revolution. Why dream of paradise after death when you could fight for a better life right here on Earth? But the pigs did have 2 truly faithful followers, the cart horses Boxer and Clover. These 2 weren't the brightest animals, but once they accepted the pigs as teachers, they believed with their whole hearts. They never missed a meeting and always led the singing of their revolutionary anthem at the end. Now, while all this secret organizing was happening, things at Manor Farm were getting worse. Mr. Jones had once been a decent farmer, but lately he'd fallen on hard times. After losing money in a lawsuit, he'd started drinking heavily, sometimes spending entire days in his armchair with nothing but newspapers and beer. His farmhands had grown lazy and dishonest. The fields filled with weeds, the buildings needed repairs, the hedges grew wild. And worst of all, the animals were being fed less and less. Then came one fateful weekend in June, when everything changed. On Saturday night, Mr. Jones went to town and got so drunk at the local pub that he didn't come home until Sunday noon. His men had milked the cows early that morning, then wandered off to hunt rabbits, without feeding a single animal. When Jones finally returned, he he went straight to sleep on the sofa with a newspaper over his face. By evening, the animals still hadn't been fed. They had gone an entire day without food, and their patience had finally run out. What happened next was completely unplanned. One of the cows, desperate with hunger, smashed through the door of the feed storage shed with her horns. Within moments, all the animals rushed in and began helping themselves to the food they'd been denied. The commotion woke Mr. Jones from his drunken sleep. He grabbed his men and they rushed to the shed, whips cracking, trying to drive the animals back. But this time, something was different. This time, the animals fought back. Without any plan, without any signal, every animal attacked at once. Jones and his men found themselves kicked, bitten, and butted from every direction. These creatures they had beaten and mistreated for years had finally had enough. The men had never seen anything like it. These weren't just dumb beasts anymore. They were a united force, fighting for their freedom. After only a minute or two, Jones and his men turned and ran for their lives. They fled down the cart track toward the main road, the animals chasing them all the way. Mrs. Jones saw what was happening from the bedroom window, grabbed a bag of belongings, and escaped out the back. Even Moses the raven abandoned his master, flying off after Mrs. Jones into the evening sky. The animals slammed the 5-barred gate shut behind them. And just like that, almost before they realized what had happened, the rebellion was complete. Mr. Jones was gone, and Manor Farm belonged to the animals. For several minutes, the animals could barely believe what they had done. Their first act was to run around the entire farm, checking every corner to make sure no human remained. Then they raced back to destroy every reminder of their old life of slavery. They broke open the harness room and threw everything down the well. The bits and bridles, the chains and nose rings, the cruel knives, all of it gone. Then they built a bonfire and burned the whips, the reins, the halters, all the hated tools of their oppression. When the whips went up in flames, every animal cheered and danced. Snowball even threw Molly's decorative ribbons onto the fire. Ribbons, he declared, were just another form of human ownership. From now on, all animals would go free and unadorned. When Boxer the cart horse heard this, he did something that touched everyone. He fetched the little straw hat he wore in summer to keep flies from his ears. Without a word, he threw it onto the fire with everything else, giving up even this small comfort for the cause. When every trace of their old bondage had been destroyed, Napoleon led them to the feed storage. He served out a double portion of corn to every animal and 2 biscuits for each dog. Then they sang their revolutionary anthem 7 times straight and fell into the deepest, most peaceful sleep of their lives. They woke at dawn, as animals always do. For one confused moment, they wondered if it had all been a dream. Then they remembered, and every single one of them raced out to the pasture together. There was a small hill in the pasture that overlooked the whole farm. The animals rushed to the top and gazed out at the fields, the orchard, the pond, the buildings. And the realization hit them all at once. Everything they could see was theirs. In the pure joy of that moment, they acted like young creatures again. They leaped and rolled in the dewy grass, kicked up clods of earth, sniffed the sweet morning air. It was as if they were seeing their home for the very first time. Then came the farmhouse. They knew it belonged to them now, but they were almost afraid to go inside. This had always been the place of humans, mysterious, forbidden, unreachable. Finally, Snowball and Napoleon nudged the door open with their shoulders. The animals filed in, one by one, tiptoeing in awed silence. They wandered from room to room, hardly daring to breathe. They marveled at things they had only glimpsed through windows before. Soft beds with feather mattresses, mirrors that showed their reflections, carpets softer than any hay. A portrait of Queen Victoria hung over the fireplace, staring down at these unlikely visitors. As they were coming back downstairs, someone noticed Molly was missing. They found her in the best bedroom, standing before Mrs. Jones's dressing table. She had taken a blue ribbon and was holding it against her shoulder, admiring herself in the mirror. The other animals scolded her sharply, and she dropped the ribbon with a guilty look. Before leaving, they found some hams hanging in the kitchen. These were taken outside and buried respectfully. And Boxer kicked in a barrel of beer in the cellar, letting it drain away into the earth. Before they left, the animals made an important decision. The farmhouse would be preserved exactly as it was, as a museum of human ways. No animal would ever live there. After breakfast, Snowball and Napoleon called everyone together for an announcement. Over the past 3 months, the pigs revealed, they had secretly taught themselves to read and write. They had used an old spelling book that once belonged to the Jones children. Napoleon led them all down to the main gate that faced the road. Snowball, who had the best handwriting, took a brush and painted over the old sign. Where it once said Manor Farm, he carefully wrote new words. Animal Farm. This was no longer Manor Farm. From this day forward, it would be Animal Farm, a place where animals ruled themselves. But there was one more thing to do. Snowball and Napoleon led everyone back to the big barn. A ladder was propped against the wall, and Snowball climbed up, with Squealer holding the paint pot below. The pigs had distilled everything they believed into 7 simple rules, the laws that would govern Animal Farm forever. In large white letters that could be read from 30 yards away, Snowball painted the 7 commandments. First, anything that walks on 2 legs is an enemy. Second, anything that walks on 4 legs or has wings is a friend. Third, no animal shall wear clothes. Fourth, no animal shall sleep in a bed. Fifth, no animal shall drink alcohol. Sixth, no animal shall kill any other animal. And seventh, most important of all animals are equal. These words were painted in the largest letters of all. Snowball read them all aloud for those who couldn't see or couldn't read. Every animal nodded in agreement. The cleverer ones immediately began memorizing all 7 rules by heart. There was just one small mistake in the spelling. Friend was written friend, and 1 letter S was backwards. But nobody minded these little errors. What mattered was the message. A new world had begun. Snowball threw down his paintbrush and called out with excitement, "Now, comrades, to the hayfield!" They would harvest the hay faster than Jones ever had. They would prove that animals could manage better than any human. The summer's work was about to begin. But wait! Just then, the 3 cows who hadn't been milked in over a day began lowing in discomfort. Their udders were painfully full. After a moment's thought, the pigs fetched buckets and figured out how to milk them. Their clever trotters turned out to be quite good at the job. Soon there were 5 buckets of fresh, frothy milk sitting in the yard. Many animals looked at them with considerable interest. "What will happen to all that milk?" someone asked. One of the hens mentioned that Mr. Jones used to mix some milk into their feed. Surely the animals could share it now. But Napoleon stepped forward, positioning himself between the animals and the buckets. "Never mind the milk, comrades," Napoleon said firmly. "That will be attended to. The harvest is more important. Comrade Snowball will lead the way. I shall follow in a few minutes." And so the animals trooped off to the hayfield for their first day of work as free creatures. They worked hard under the summer sun, filled with hope and purpose. It was the beginning of a new era. But when they returned that evening, tired and satisfied from their labor, they noticed something. The 5 buckets of milk had disappeared. No one said anything about it, at least not yet.